Good morning, my lovelies. Great to see everyone this morning. Super excited to be here with all of you. And I woke up with extra crazy hair this morning, so I had to laugh at myself when I looked in the mirror for the first time and my hair was sticking up everywhere. But that's how I roll. So, welcome to Painting in Your PJs with Minette. I am Dr. Minette Riordan, and I am so excited to be here live with all of you this morning, returning today to our self love extravaganza. And I wanted to play with adding quotes to our art journals. This was one of the prompts from our beautiful list of self love prompts created by me and made pretty by my amazing kiddo Connor Dobson. And these are still available for purchase through the end of the month. And then we'll get them retired, and we're working on a new list for you. But there are 28 art journal prompts and 28 original affirmations, all focused on self-love in this juicy printable download for you. So if you haven't snagged that yet, go ahead and do that today. And if you have already purchased it, thank you. It supports our channel, and I'm super, super grateful. And I was thinking about good morning, Cindy and Carol. And I was thinking this morning as I was reading through the prompts, and I was thinking about my making mornings sacred that I started talking about on Mondays. And really, for me, every morning I want, good morning, Mary, great to see you. I want to make every morning sacred. When I really started to think about how do I want to start my day and how do I want to feel every day? Well, I want to feel kind and loving towards myself, but just taking that couple of extra minutes to make mornings sacred, to do a little journaling, to focus in on how am I today? And I'm really good today. I hope you are as well. And wherever you are, to honor and acknowledge that I don't wake up feeling fantastic every day, or I might wake up feeling nervous or worried, right? Anxious about one of my kids. That's something that can definitely get me going, or aging parents. So there's a lot of things that are going through our heads, or thinking about, oh my gosh, I have so much to do today. And I found that when I can just spend this little bit of time in the morning, whether it's 15 minutes coloring a sacred circle design, or an hour of luscious, juicy art journaling, or I finished my lion painting. I haven't even posted pictures of it because I had this vision in my head for my next painting. So I've started working on this huge coyote painting, and I keep meaning to roll it over here, my easel, so you can see it. But it's so simple to bring the sacred into your everyday experience. And one of the simplest ways to do that, so you can see what I'm doing here, is just to light a candle, right? Is just simply to light a candle. This is a beautiful handmade soy candle from the Adirondack Fragrance and Flavor Farm. Fragrance and Flavor Farm in the Adirondack Mountains in upstate New York. Absolutely gorgeous. It's fennel and mint. I love the way it smells, so it makes my space smell nice. If you're someone that really responds to scent, maybe you love essential oils and diffusers, a little bit of frankincense can open up that sense of connecting to spirit. So this is what was on my head, and you know that these are episodes are totally stream of consciousness, and whatever I'm thinking about in the moment with a little bit of intention put behind them too. And I was thinking about this month of self-love and what makes us feel most loving toward ourselves, or I can only speak for myself here, is what helps me to feel most loving towards myself. Well, it's practicing kindness, small acts of kindness. And the kinder I am to myself, then the more kindness I have to give to others. Like the metaphor of, put your own oxygen mask on before before you try to rescue others. And it always makes me think of how we have to fill our own well first, because we can't give from an empty well. Hey, Lisa, good morning. I get to see you a bunch today. Lucky me. And so as I was thinking about this morning, I wanted to bring in that moment of just sacred thoughtfulness. I haven't done, hi Yvonne, I haven't done journal writing this morning, right? I actually got up and went straight to my computer to do some work this morning because I woke up with my head full of ideas. So I haven't done anything creative yet. So I'm extra excited to dive in. But just noticing how do I want to feel going through the day today is a great question. And I always want to feel kind and loving towards myself. All right, enough chit chat. You guys know I can talk your ears off. Well, and I'm going to keep talking your ears off here for a minute. Let me just zoom this in. So I've got a little bit of a chaotic mess going on here. Grab some water. Even just looking at the candle, right? It reminds me to take a breath, to slow down. I'm not in a rush. I don't need to finish what I start. I'm here for the journey this morning and for the process, right? I'm here to connect it deeply with myself and my art and the page. And so I had some thoughts for what I wanted to do this morning. I'm going to step away from the pinks and reds. And I wanted to start with a quote and then talk about, some different ideas for integrating collage and quotes. Many people, this always surprises me, but over the years, having taught so many workshops and, art retreats and things, the one of the things that I have seen is people don't like their handwriting. And I'm a big fan of getting my own hand into my art whenever possible, including my handwriting. Now, I went to Catholic school from about third grade until I was a sophomore in high school, and penmanship was a big deal. And I was one of those lefties that they tried briefly to convince me to write with my right hand, but that did not work. But I've always liked my handwriting, and yet it gets messier and messier as I get older. So practicing playing with our handwriting is another act of self-love. So learning to love our art, our writing, the expression, the unique expression of us is part of that self-love journey that we're on this morning. Leslie, I was just thinking about you, my friend. Good morning. Good morning. I have missed seeing you lately in our Sacred Circles calls. And so I went through my box of collage materials this morning, and I'm going to share with you the quote that I picked. And I think what I'll do is pop this quote over into the chat so that you guys can see what the quote is as well. Hi, Judy. Good morning. So the quote is, and one day she discovered that she was fierce and strong and full of fire, and that not even she could hold herself back because her passion burned brighter than her fears. So there's lots of self-love quotes on the internet. If that one doesn't resonate with you, a 20-second Google search will definitely help you find one. But that one really struck me. And so I had some ideas for images. I thought about doing maybe the masking again that we did. And at a resale store, I found this old book of patterns, of sewing patterns. And so I have these really funny, I think it was from late 70s, early 80s, some really funny outfits. This one feels playful and fun. Hey, Diego. Diego is being so needy this morning, man. I also really loved this one. I loved the look on her face. I also liked the direction of this one because it felt like it would be fun to create an illustrated quote that went along, the sides of her. So that one was kind of my top pick. But this is when I'm looking at collage. So I already know the quote that I want to use. That's all I know. And I know I want a human figure in the image. And so knowing those two things, I picked the quote first. That was my process. And I picked the prompt from the self-love prompts, which was about using a self-love quote in your art journal. I also really loved this one. She feels so strong and looking ahead at her destiny. So that one was kind of a close pick too. Same here, like she's so stepping fully into her adventure. And I want you to notice that these images, for the most part, some of them, well, not all of them, but quite a few of them are already cut away from their backgrounds. So when I'm working with intuitive collage, I always want to cut an image away from its background and place it onto an art journal page that has a new background. I don't want to use the whole image. I want to make the image my own. And so part of doing that, this is something I learned from being a soul collage facilitator, is to cut the images away from their background. I love the look on her face as well. This is one that was really calling to me to paint over it and use this as a face painting practice image. Um, Look at this outfit, you guys. How hilarious is that with the stripes and the little hat, and then, of course, the high heels and the little cuffed pants. This one really cracked me up. And then the horizontal stripes, and then the photo has those vertical and horizontal stripes, like, and that sassy look on her face. This one, I loved her pose. So this is one like I did last week where we took the magazine image and created a mask and a stencil. This would be perfect for that because it's such a great power pose. Here's another one from that same book. These were all kind of in the top of my box. And again, I loved the pose here. So it wasn't so much about her face, although that kind of, looking out of the side of her eye is kind of fun. So this one felt a little juicy as well. But these, I had a lot of fun just flipping through and going, I'm looking for an image of a woman that represents that fierce, strong, full of fire. Not even she could hold herself back. And as I read the quote again, even though I love the shape of this one, I don't know, I've been drawn to this one for a little while. Okay, I'm going to go with that one, but I feel like they're for doing a self-love art journal, really looking for those figurative representations of women that are in their element, that are fully themselves, that are expressing that confidence. There's some creativity here, right? This one looks curious. I think this was from a old pattern book about making bags. So it was full of all kinds of patterns for bags, but it had these gorgeous pictures. This one feels like an image of celebration and, party, right? So these are all great, but not quite where I wanted to go today. And I knew I wanted to get back to using my blues and greens as well. So here was the one that we created last week where I used the magazine image and on a piece of cardstock and turned it into a mask. I loved the final product of that one. All right, I only have a couple of pages left in this, so this is going to get me through February, which is kind of exciting as well. And make some room on my table here. And again, I feel like I want to do some journaling, but I have not gotten to that today, so that will probably come afterwards. About this whole idea of, so where I would go as I'm thinking about this with the journaling, get that keyboard out of the way. Brad has a fit if I get too much paint on it. Got to be mindful of that. I think I'm going to do a nice painty background. And then she fits so perfectly on the side of the page, maybe even down here in the corner where I could paint more of her. But then I want to write the quote off to the side of her. So this one just felt like it fit the page. So I was looking for expression and color, that look on her face, but also would it fit the shape of the page and the direction that I was going. So I'm curious if anyone else has any favorite self-love quotes. There's one by Lucille Ball that's always one of my favorites. Let me see. Love yourself first and everything else will fall into line. You really have to love yourself to get anything done in this world. Love, love, love Lucille Ball. So there's a couple of great ones out there that when you are able to love yourself deeply, you can be kind to others. There was one by Pema Chodron, who's one of my favorite Buddhist teachers that I really love, or even just asking yourself the question, have you told yourself that you love yourself today? Right? So the thing about increasing confidence and self-love is all about, I got too much stuff everywhere, is all about it's a practice and it's an ongoing practice, and none of us get it perfect any particular day. So I'm going to start as I often do, and I got this really cheap acrylic craft paint at a resale store for 25 cents, so I figured I'd give that a try today. So I'm just going to get some color down on the page. Normally, I like to start with words or some marks or texture, but it felt good today to just go for it. So this is a heavy body acrylic. I have not gessoed this page today. So I'd love to hear some other thoughts and voices besides mine about what are the things that you do? What are the self-care practices that you do to really nurture and take care of yourself? Maybe it's not creativity for you. Maybe it's exercise and eating healthy. Maybe it's meditation or working out. Maybe it is art. Maybe it's prayer. Maybe it's attending services. Maybe it's writing in a journal. Anybody else have any favorite things they do? Do you ever even think about self-love? So I'm noticing, because of course, oops, that came out way too much. Our stats, right? And this is a tricky topic. It's a tricky topic. People don't always want to look, or we think maybe it's selfish to spend time thinking about ourselves when there's others who need our care and attention. Yeah, exactly. Force yourself to do yoga stretches. That's one of the things on my list to get better at. I just started learning Qigong, and I love it, and yet I'm not making time for it every day. And I completely agree, Cindy. One of my biggest challenges is how much time I spend sitting at my work desk or my art table or watching television in the evenings. So I had way too much of that paint, so we're just going to start layering that up on this other page, and it'll become the basis for something, who knows what, reading, art, tidying, caring for your plants, yoga, inspirational videos. Yeah, beautiful. Feels like I'm trying to decide, does it need some yellow or maybe a pop of white on here? So I'm thinking I'm just going to add a little gesso and just get it a little bit messy and see what we can create. Don't think about self-love, but become more selfish with your time. I love that. I hit that point too when my, kids started to get a little bit older, and I was trying to, at that time, build my business coaching business and, still doing all the grocery shopping and the cooking, not because anyone else expected it of me, because I expected it of me. And I got to that point where, I told my husband, I just can't, I need some help. And so I taught my kids to cook. Brad and I took turns shopping. Okay, I'm loving this kind of mixed background, and my kids are amazing cooks, as Leslie can attest to, as my son has done a lot of the cooking for a couple of my retreats here in the house. So I'm loving this. It feels kind of simple and dreamy, and when I remember that I'm going to want to put a quote down on the page. And boy, I'm getting, seems like extra glare this morning on that wet paint. Let me see if I can turn that light down just a little bit. It's going to make it a little, no, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it's just going to be. So I'm going to want to be able to put a quote over here. So I might even end up having to lighten that up a little bit more, but I'm kind of liking the just very abstract nature, the marks that are already on the page. Reading art, listening to music, enjoying your hot tea, going out with girlfriends, spending time in stores. Yeah, beautiful, right? Beautiful. And Yvonne, I know getting your nails done, right? Or I don't know if you do them yourself, but you always have the most beautifully manicured hands as well. All right, finish up my coffee there. I'm going to hit this with the dryer, so I'm going to be noisy here for just a minute. And I'm thinking it's a little too green, so I'm going to get it dry, and then I'm going to come back in with another layer of some blue in there over the top, and then we'll see where we're going to go next. Again, this is always an intuitive process, and I never know where I'm going to end up. Yvonne, you do nails for a living or you do them for fun? All these things that I don't know about you guys. Carol, you get a massage once a month. Would go more often if you could. Yeah, and so often we think about self-love or self-care as taking care simply of our physical selves or our environment. But I would argue that the biggest part of self-love is doing the inner work to explore our feelings and emotions, right? And so the journey and what I hope I've been modeling this month is to think about it. We don't tend to think about it. And when we don't think about it, what happens is that we spend too much time in judgment and criticism, self-judgment and self-criticism, which a lot of times can lead to judgment and criticism of others as well. So I believe that doing this kind of introspective work that we do a lot here on Painting in Your PJs is just as important as those outer expressions. I did not know that, Yvonne. Well, that makes total sense to me. I love it. I wish you lived closer. I have yet to find one here, and it's time to go find one, especially as we get closer to spring. I could use a good pedicure right now. And I could definitely use a manicure. My nails are always nice and long, but they're always very messy. And when my daughter was home, she loved doing my nails, especially when she was younger. So they looked a lot nicer, but they're always so painty. I'm like, yeah, why bother? Okay, so that's a little bit better, starting to have a little more character. I think I want to get this dry. I want to figure out where the quote is going to go. How much of the space do I want to take up with words? Because I'd love to maybe do some other mark making on the page as well. And I'm just using this page on the left to clean off my tools. It'll become the background for something else. All right, dryer. You're just too far away, Yvonne, but if I were closer, I would come see you. I wish I'd known that when my kids were doing drumline competitions in Bakersfield in the spring. I would have come to see you while I was there. We spent a lot of Saturdays in Bakersfield at the high school. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get some matte medium on her and get her put down on the page. And get that ungunked. Oh, dang it. It had a little like spot in there of stuff all in the top. And that is probably way more matte medium than I need. So I am going to, if this happens with you with paint or other things, palette knife is your best friend. Just grab a palette knife, scoop that up, and just put it right back into the container. All right, so we're going to get that spread. So this is a pretty thick magazine image. It had really beautiful glossy, thicker than average pages. So I'm putting matte medium underneath her and on the page, and then I'm also going to get that matte medium over the top of her as well, because I'm probably going to want to come in with a little bit of paint on some of this. And I probably didn't quite use all of that. Oh, that's so lovely, Carol, that you have an in-person art group. I think I might have mentioned in here, I just joined my local art guild, which felt like a big, bold move for me to really, be spending time with people who make their living making art and selling art. And I went to my first meeting last week, and then we went out for a cocktail afterwards, and it was really fun to just spend time with other artists. And the topic of the month was about how to take better photography with your phone of your artwork. So it was a great topic. But Carol, I don't have that time, right? Or that group of people yet that come and play in the studio, but I absolutely love that. And what a gift to them that you have this space and are willing to do that for them too. So I want to get that matte medium nice and dry because I don't want to use any kind of pen or posca on here. Unless that surface is super dry. And what I'm seeing here at the bottom of the page is I think I want to continue her body down here so it feels like it fits into the rest of the page. And I love kind of blending art and imagery together. Again, it's that bit that helps us make everything our own. Let's see. So I'm going to just use this little bit over here as my palette. And she's got this nice green dress on. I maybe want a little bit of a darker green in there. And also, as I'm looking at the flower, there's this gorgeous pop of this orange at the tip of the flower that's in her hair, and this little bit of darker blue. Sorry. And I want to get some of those colors in the background also. Every time that heater comes on, definitely. And she has this pretty pattern on her dress as well. And so what I'm thinking is I'm going to get some paint down and then maybe find a stencil that I could add some pattern to her dress here. And trying to decide, do I just want to have that green come all the way across? That's lovely, Carol. So already she feels more incorporated on the page and not like she's just hanging there as an image. That was way too much green paint. And this is a different color green. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to bring a little bit of that same green maybe up here into the design of the leaves. So we're just repeating those colors. And at the moment, it feels like a very, blah and dull background. So I definitely have a little work to do to kind of figure out where I want this to go. But that felt like a really simple way to incorporate her into the page, have her feeling a little bit more complete. I'm going to just zoom out just a little bit. There we go. Now we can see the whole page. That's awesome, Lisa. It's a big part of why I do what I do, both here on YouTube and in all of my programs and in the retreats in my home. We're just about ready. Hopefully today we're going to be announcing our June retreat, which is going to be the Time Travelers Retreat here in my studio in June, being led by me and another amazing artist, my other wonderful Leslie in my life. All right, so this is starting to feel a little bit better. And what I'm thinking about right now is, so there's a lot of different ways to add quotes. So let's just talk through while this dries a little bit here, talk through some of the different ways that we could add quotes to a page and then what I'm leaning towards. So I love writing along the edge of an image. So I'm thinking rather than having this whole thing be writing, that I could just write that quote right along the image. I'm also looking at how I could, have some fun things, more mark making and things in the background, and maybe create a space for that quote here on the page. And I would probably, if I were going to do that, I would even, draw a square here on the page to kind of have a guideline. And I could fill this whole thing with words, which also feels really intriguing and fun to do. So rather than doing more mark making, let the words themselves become the art. And in that case, I would draw a series of lines on the page and write the quote and fill in all of the letters. And that actually feels really kind of fun and intriguing and kind of maybe where my head was before I started this morning. And so it really is about, do you want the imagery and the painting parts to be the focus, or the words to be the focus? And there's no right or wrong way to incorporate a quote. You can always print a quote out if you don't love your handwriting. Print a quote out and cut the pieces of paper into individual words and paste them onto the page. So that's another way to do it. what I love about cutting and pasting words onto the page is that gives you the opportunity to have more happening in the background. So, kind of similar to what we did on the affirmation cards, where I cut apart more or less the words. So, there's benefit to printing out and cutting out the words that you love. That's one way to do it. Again, I could make it very subtle and have those words flow around the character. But right now, in the moment, what I'm feeling drawn to is really making the quote an equal focal point to my image here. And I think that's where I'm going to go. And because I'm a lefty and I want to make sure I don't drag my hand through all of this wet paint, I'm going to go ahead, and I thought I was going to use that paint up. It's funny, it all came out in stripes on there. But I don't want to stick my hand and arm in that big pile of paint, even though I have paint all over my clothes, my pajamas, pretty much everything. My husband laughs at me because everything I own pretty much is covered in paint. All right. And I'm going to hit this with the dryer so that I can fold my book up and make it a little smaller. I think that's going to make it easier to focus on the page. And then my page won't stick to my surface. One day I was on a Zoom call with someone, probably a client, and had washed my hands, so I thought, and gotten ready for the call. And when I got on the call, and I'm a hand talker, and lifted up my hand, like the whole side of my hand was painted red. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, what happened?" And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then I realized like the backside of my hand looked like it was flowing with blood. Not a fun moment for the person on the other end of the Zoom call, until she realized that really there was nothing, it was not a big deal. All right, so I'm going to go back and look at my quote again. I got to go find it again. And one day she discovered that she was fierce and strong and full of fire, and that not even she could hold herself back because her passion burned brighter than her fears, by someone named Mark Anthony. And I wonder if that perhaps is a quote from a book. And it's a pretty long quote, so I think, we can really make it fill the page here. And my dress wasn't dry yet. And so the first thing I want to do is think about, how big do I want the quote to be? And I'm thinking I want the words to be pretty big. So I'm just going to draw some lines as my guidelines, and I'm going to do this in pencil first. I don't need those lines to all be exactly the same size. In fact, some maybe could be a little smaller or a little taller than others. And then I will go back over it with a black pen. But now I've got my lines in here, and I'm going to come in and start to add the words of that quote, because I want to be able to place them appropriately, right? On the page. Like, I don't want to write it too small and it's only up here, and I don't want to write it too big and run out of space. So it might take me a couple of tries. Excuse me. What I love about working with quotes like this is that the more that we write the quote in our own hand, the more it becomes that mindful, introspective, just like coloring in other parts of our uh, artistic expression, right? It's like coloring our sacred circle designs. It's like writing out your affirmations in your own hand. When you write it, there's a different connection. And this has been proved by neuroscience and by art therapy and psychology that when you write it and you say the words out loud, they become embodied, they become a part of you. And so, one of the things I love about adding quotes is that I'm sitting with these words in a very different way. So, I'm going to come in here and just have a little bit of fun. And I'm just going to start. I don't know right now if I'm writing too big or too small, and I might have to change it up. I'm going to use just kind of a silly combination of uppercase and lowercase. And it was fortuitous that those words fit just right on that first line, and we'll see where I get to. And one day she discovered. So I think this one's going to have to be really tall and skinny. I want to get that whole word in there. Just make it fit, right? I'm just making it fit in this space. It's absolutely perfect. And one day she discovered, I'm feeling like I want maybe to vary the height of my lines a little bit here. Make this one a little smaller. My husband's cooking breakfast upstairs and I can smell it, and all of a sudden my tummy's gurgling. And I'm doing it all in caps because it will be easier to trace over later, but you could do this in cursive. You can, do it if you're a calligrapher in a really fun font. Let's do this one nice and wide on here. So I want to have the words be readable and artful. So I'm just varying the width and the height to kind of make it just a little bit more creative. Discovered that she was fierce. See if I can fit 2 words in here, fierce and strong. We're going to have to make this one really small and skinny, fierce and strong. There's a comma in there. And full of fire. I'm wondering if this quote speaks to anyone else. Do you feel like you've had that moments when you really were able to look at yourself and admire your own strength and realize that at that moment in time, your passion was bigger than your fear? So for me, my journey as an artist has been one in the past where there was a lot of fear, fear of sharing or claiming I am an artist. And when art became such a central part of my life personally, I realized that my passion was brighter than my fear. And it wasn't a journey of a day or a month, right? It was a journey of years. And I'm hoping we're going to make this fit. We'll see. and full of fire. I always forget how to draw an ampersand, the and symbol, but I want to capture a little more space in here. So I want to, and I have the word and written so many times. So let's get and. Looks kind of like a treble clef, but it'll work. I love that. Push yourself in spite of your fears. Beautiful. And that not even, definitely squeezing those guys in there. Not even she could hold herself back. And that might be all that I fit in here, right? Or I'm going to have to squish some of this together a little bit more as I get down the page, that not even she. So maybe we'll have a little shorter line here. That not even she could, make sure I'm spelling these right, hold herself back. Because okay, those words are getting a little close together there. I might want to come in and spread that out just a little bit more. And sometimes erasing over the top of acrylic ink, as you can see, can be a little bit tricky. Huh. I love that, Cindy. A sticky note on your desk. Choose courage over comfort. Can't have both. Yep. Love it. Love it. Love it. Yeah, it does look really shiny, but because of the light there. Let's see. So I'm just going to go right back over the top. Once I add the black, it'll all get fixed, and I can always bring in a little more paint. And then we definitely want that word passion to be nice and big in there. Because her passion, we're going to make this one fit in here, filling every little nook and cranny here with the word. Back to my quote, because her passion burned brighter than her fears. Just fit. And then I'm going to put the author in here, Mark Anthony. All right, so I managed to get it all up in there. All right, get back to my Zoom screen. I can see the quote. So you can kind of see that worked pretty well. That was the only one place, and I think we can clean that up quite a bit. And so I'm going to go over it in black. And then I want to come back in and with some of these pops of color, and I'm thinking either some colored pencil or maybe some posca over the top, and we're going to decorate up these letters a little bit. And I don't think I'm going to finish this one today, but I'm going to get the black down on the letters and then let that get really dry, and that'll be the next step of the process. And I am gonna pop over to the other side of my studio and get a different marker. I will be right up. And I love that Mary said the fire shows up when you feel helpless for a few days and then think about giving in, right? Like we don't. We just gather our courage and we go on, don't we? All right, so I went to get an IdentiPen, Karen Hartman. It is the brand. I will type it in here. It's one of my favorite journals. Hana Mula is the brand, and I think I spelled that right, and it is a sketch diary. It is a sketch diary. You have to use the word diary because that's the one that gives you the pages with the lines and the blank pages as well. And you can get them, I think Jerry's Artorama might sell them. I know you can get them on Amazon. I'm going to mute myself for just a second. Little froggy in my throat this morning. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm actually going to draw in the lines because that becomes part of the mark making process. And I'm using an IdentiPen, which is one of my favorite pens. It's made by Sakura. They're double tipped. It has a fat and a skinny end. And they write on just about anything, but they go over the top of acrylics really smoothly. They're designed to write on like glass and plastic. But I really love them. They can work on fabric as well. I don't need those lines to be neat. I want this to have a very hand-drawn look. And I think and it also, it dries really, really fast as well, which I also really love. Has a nice fine tip on one end and that little bit fatter on the other end. And again, that quote was by Mark Anthony. Might take a little longer to dry over this surface, but we'll see where we get to. And I want the writing to be pretty big and bold. So I'm going to use the thicker end here. And I might look for some places where I can just add some additional lines or decoration. Again, I want the words to be readable and artful. And I love creating illustrated quotes like this. This may not be super exciting to watch me going over the letters. And I can look for some of that, spaciousness, right? Where I can add some other decorations or little curly cues. And again, I will come back in with some color to add to this, but this is the direction that I'm going, is just taking some time. And again, this is really sitting mindfully with these words, remembering that this is the really a sacred creative practice. I believe that making art is a radical act of courage and self-love when we really commit to prioritizing our creative journey. That's hilarious. Yeah, it's a lovely, lovely pen, and they seem to last a long time and have a lot of ink in them too. And these little smaller ones, little lighter touch here, not as much decorative elements. And I'm seeing where I've got some space in here, so maybe I'll come in and just do a little doodling and mark making in some of these spaces. Again, more places to add color to, maybe a few sweet little symbols in here, making that quote illustrated, right, and a little more decorative. I love paint markers, but if I want my lettering to be neat, I have found they're not always the optimal choice for lettering because they do tend to blob and blurt. So I have tested so many different pens. In a pinch, a Sharpie is great, like especially a nice chisel tip Sharpie. But I'm seeing even where this one it's flowing nicely, but it's not always adhering. It smears a little bit. And sometimes if you just take it on off the acrylic and onto another piece of paper, you can get that flow coming back, even though this page is super, super dry. I'm just noticing the sort of drag and pull of this a little bit. And I have a big box of these, and this one also may be an older used one. Great question. If clear gesso would help with not smearing, the nice thing about clear gesso is that it does have a little grain and tooth to it, so that might be a great option, Carol. We'd have to test it and see. And the matte medium, creates a really slick surface on there. So I'm noticing a difference probably in some of the places where I had matte medium. It's a little slicker than in the places maybe where I didn't. And sometimes we just need to be patient, let it dry, and, go over it one more time. And very few pens like writing over acrylic. It can be tricky to really find your favorite pen for writing over acrylic. Like I said, I love my paint pens and posca markers, but in my art journal, I want it to be a little bit. Yeah, that's why having a craft dryer like changed my art life, kind of like the poscas did, because it sped up the process. Another tip for impatience like that is not to work on one page at a time, but to work on several. So if you're working in an art journal, maybe also have, a canvas and don't feel like you have to finish it in one sitting. I think I used to have so much impatience and feel like I had to finish everything in one sitting. So once I went over this one with black, you can just barely tell there's still a few little lines behind. It's all good. And play with shapes. Like it's great to just take a page in your art journal and practice writing the alphabet, uppercase, lowercase, in your own handwriting, stretch letters, compact letters, until you start to find that kind of style that you love. And I think I still want some pattern on her dress, or maybe I'm going to continue how I've begun and just draw some pattern in there, and then I'll come back with my paint pens and just zhuzh it all up with a little bit of color. Patterns don't have to be fancy when we're adding patterns to a design. They can actually be really simple. And again, just adding these few little lines on here integrates it with the rest of the piece, gets my hand into the piece, right? That we've got the little bit of green, so we move that green around the page. Now this feels better, right? And that we've sort of integrated it into the page. Add a little stripes down here. And I can come in and just outline her to help her sort of stand out on the page a little bit more. Okay, good to know, Karen. But I know they definitely have them on Amazon, and you definitely have to make sure that you spell it right. Let's see, make sure. Yeah, it's HANNEMUHLE. So I double check that online here real quick. Somebody called Mr. Art sells them. Yeah, if you just do a Google search, there's a ton of people selling them in different places online. But again, it's that sketch diary is the one that you want. And I'm about to fill this one up. Yeah, you're spelling it incorrectly, Karen. HANNEMUHLE. It's tricky spelling. It doesn't quite sound like it looks. Let me see if I can find a link for you and drop that into the. Huh. Apparently, Walmart has them as well. I've never seen them there before. Bear with me 1 second. Because it's not a sketchbook, it is definitely a sketch diary. Took me forever to figure out how to spell it and how to find it, and I realized that I was spelling it wrong. All right, here comes the link, Karen, directly to Amazon. So if you just click that link, you'll see them in Amazon. Then you'll know the spelling and what to look for, and you can shop for them in other places as well. But again, it's that spelling makes all the difference. All right, so I still have some fun, playful work to do on this, but I love, love, love this page and where it's going. Love this self-love quote. Feel like this is a beautiful addition to my exploration of self-love this month. And one idea for adding quotes, I think on Thursday we'll play with some other ways to add some quotes to our page as well. Feels like a fun theme for the week. As always, my creative friends, thank you so much for joining me live. Thank you for watching the replay. And may your day ahead be filled with love and kindness, both towards yourself and receive from others. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye bye, everyone.